Hey everybody, I'm going to teach you the basics of drawing with Flash, drawing tools, some simple little tips here. Okay, first of all, when you're dealing with vector graphics, remember it's not pixels, it is points along paths. So a lot of times you're going to use this by building up with shapes. You have this thing called the rectangle tool and the oval tool. Now, there's also a rectangle primitive tool and a rectangle oval primitive tool that we'll talk about here in a second. Okay? In a nutshell, when you get these shape tools, you'll have a stroke color indicated next to the pencil, that's the outline, and a fill color. You can change the fill color by clicking on the colors and selecting whatever color you want. Now, with the stroke, you also have options for changing the style for lines. Right now, I'm just going to keep it solid and 1 point stroke. That's one pretty thin line. Alright, so if I click and drag, it will make a green rectangle with a thin black stroke. If I change it, the stroke, and I could also use the slider to change the size of my stroke, so 7.6. Let's get a different color here. You can have some gradient colors too. It gives you a different type of shape. Now to undo something in Flash, simply hit Control Z. You don't have to hit the Alt key like you did in Photoshop. Now besides the rectangle tool, the oval tool does just what you think it does, makes an oval. Now with the primary oval tool and the rectangle tool, the first top two, they're a little bit different than the primitive tools. They give you the option to break apart different sections. So if I go to my black arrow tool and click, I can select part of my shape and pull it out. If I put the tip of the arrow on the side of the edge, a curved line will pop up that allows me to change the shape of that. Okay, so I can take that initial oval and click and drag that path that builds the oval into different types of shapes. Whereas if I made a primitive tool, like this oval primitive tool, when I try to select it, you'll notice it has this square on it. It's kind of locked together. If I double click it, it goes into this thing called a drawing object where I go and I can go and edit it. So it gives me a little bit of leeway, especially when you have like multiple shapes going on, that you're not going to mess up that shape. Primarily we'll be using just the regular oval tool and rectangle tool. We don't have to worry about going into that special editing screen. Now there's a third tool called the Polystar tool, and this tool, let me set this back to normal, solid. Polystar tool, it has options right here. If you click this options bar, style polygon 5-sided, if you hit OK, it will make a 5-sided polygon. If I click the options tool and switch this up to style star, it's going to make a 5-pointed star. So if I switch the number of sides to 3, I get like triangles and 3-pointed stars. Okay, I hope this makes sense about basic drawing tools. Now one question, once you have your main shapes, you can use your brush tool and pencil tool. Brush tool just makes lines that are with your fill color. The pencil tool makes lines that are with your stroke color. Okay, so if I want to add like little details, like maybe I want to have some hair coming off this and turn this polygon into a more of a creature here. Use those lines to go. Now, a question that a lot of people ask are, how can I change the brush size? Well, since it's a vector program, I can change the brush size by zooming in. I didn't really change the brush size, it's just the same brush, but it's going to make a lot thinner lines when I zoom in. And if I zoom out, it's going to make a lot bigger lines. Another thing you do on the fly, on the bottom of your toolbar, there is a option when you have the brush tool for brush size. Another thing that you can do, if you're on your keyboard next to the letter P, there's those brackets. The left bracket will make things smaller if I type it, and if I type the right bracket, it makes things larger. So I could use some keyboard shortcuts to change my size. So that is drawing with Flash tools in the basic. You can make custom shapes if you want to take your pencil tool. Well, let me take this pencil tool here. Well, my essentials got messed up. So remember, you can always go to Reset Essentials, just like any Adobe program. All right, with pencil tool, a couple things with the pencil tool. You have this thing called pencil mode. By default, you're going to be on straighten. If you want to go to smooth, it's going to straighten your lines out. So if I had to try to make it a curved line, it's going to snap it straight. Smooth is going to smooth the lines out. So if I try to make it, kind of rounds it out. And then there's this one called ink, where it is more like a regular pencil, so I can make lines. Now if I go around and I close my path and I freehand draw this, I can take my paint bucket tool and fill in that area, that closed gap, that closed space. That's not filling. There must be a gap. If you have like a big hole, it's going to fill in the gap. There is this little option down here when you have the paint bucket tool for closing gaps. Say close large gaps. There was a little gap there. Oh, it works. Okay, so if your paint bucket tool is not filling in a gap, now this area, like right here, this gap is way too big. But if I make the gap a little bit closer, yeah, we can see that gap, but Flash will use its memory to fill in. It's still a little bit too tight or too far. There it goes. Okay, so that is Flash drawing basics in a nutshell. I hope this gives you some good information. We're going to start by doing some drawings here with the next video. Okay. See you next time. Bye-bye.